What's going on, everybody? It's Khemist. I want to speak to you all about my own experiences that have brought me to equitable exposure as a service and delivering it to myself first and foremost before anyone else. I started this in about 2014 when I was working with a nonprofit that was helping farmers in Africa to really monetize their land. And, the farmers would sell the produce that they farmed, of course, and then they would share it with the nonprofit, share a percentage of the proceeds with the nonprofit because the nonprofit had bought a good deal of their land. And things were going well for a while, but ultimately the government of that country did not like the setup of the organization, right? And so they started blocking the payments from the farmers to the organization. And so we needed a very innovative way to deal with this. I was the youngest board member on this board of directors for this nonprofit. And so I was asked to come up with an innovative solution. And at the time I had been studying blockchain, cryptocurrency, things like that. And so that's how I initially got into it, just teaching these elders who were, 30, 40 years my elder, about this technology. And I noticed very early on that it was so complex that I had to break it down to the level of a third grader. And I say the level of a third grader because my grandfather had a third grade education and he became fairly successful despite that third grade education. So I figured if I could break it down to that level, then anybody could get it. And they did get it. Being the youngest in the organization and having a lot of older people in the organization came with its challenges, particularly just kind of like the bravado of the older men. And unfortunately, in these types of organizations, a lot of times there is the failure to separate business from personal, and that occurred. And I had to really navigate that, and I found myself having to advocate for myself in ways that I don't feel like I should have had to, based on the mission and the proposed vision of that organization, but I did. And so that changed things. And that was the first time that I've really started to see that, hey, you have to make sure that you're giving of yourself to things that pour into you and reciprocate. And I wasn't, ultimately. And so later on down the line, I ended up, don't know if you can still see me, I ended up getting a role consulting for a hedge fund. They were learning new crypto and blockchain products. They had a group that they had created in order to teach others, charging them for learning these things in different markets, etc. So I started teaching blockchain in about 2014, 2015, on a very introductory level, right? Just to account for that learning curve that came with such complex tech. And it went well. It was really cool. I taught a class on time management and, an onboarding class into the actual group and the organization. I taught an intro, to blockchain and crypto 101. It was going very well, and I felt great because this group had a report that they would put out, and my face was in the report, and it was, I felt really good, but I wasn't being paid for my time. I wasn't being paid for my energy. And yes, I get it. Experience is pay to a degree, right? Experience is pay until it ain't no more. And at this time, I had accumulated a great deal of experience. I had degrees and things like that. I had paid for certifications and mentorships that cost me, thousands of dollars a month. And so I didn't feel as though I was getting equitably exposed at this point, and so I had to end up moving on. In the midst of that, I had met some people through the organization that I was working with that I just explained, and I was asked actually to collaborate to create a company with some of these individuals, and I did. I was working with them in the organization, everything was going well, so I figured, hey, why not branch off and create a company? And I put all the money up for the company, a few $1,000s up for the company, and the individuals who were with me in the company didn't do what they said they were going to do, right? One just kind of completely left and did their own thing, and the other one, who had access to the money, did not do what they were supposed to do. And there was lawsuits involved, and of course I came out as the victor, but that ruined a relationship that I felt was very near and dear to me, and it changed a lot of my misconceptions about business and about working with people who you have feelings for, right? Because this individual was a good friend of mine, or at least I thought at the time, and so I had once again inequitably exposed myself, and I had to work my way out of that, right? And this happened in about 2021, 2022, and at the end of 2022, many of you may or may not know, I hit my head. I fell and I landed on my head and my neck, and I lost memory, I lost clients, I lost pretty much everything. I lost everything, and I had to leave and start over. I had to learn, basic English over. I had to learn, I'd forgotten all of my Spanish, and I'm just now getting back to the point where, I'm speaking Spanish more fluidly than I did before. I'm not going to say fluently, but more fluidly. So I went through a lot, and in a short amount of time, and I had to rebuild from zero. I mean, everything, right? Lost car, house, everything. Moved out of the country again, moved back out of the country, as you all know, for those of you who do know me. I've lived in and out of the country several times throughout my life. And so I left, I went out to Costa Rica, in the middle of nowhere, farm town in the middle of nowhere in Costa Rica, and began building out there, and was able to meet some very wonderful people, very well-connected people. And, we continue to work together and collaborate and contact each other and communicate, to this day. And so that is an example of a time where I gave myself equitable exposure, right? I made sure when I went out to Costa Rica, I did everything differently, and made great connections. But even while I was there, I was still working on with others, a nonprofit organization that was meant to educate and build awareness on this new digital age that we're going into. And we built an innovation academy, right? I bootstrapped it myself, over $150,000. And we had different directors, and we had people who were doing their own thing and building their own brands. And we went to collaborate with them. And what I will say is, especially at this time now, where we're doing a lot of grassroots work and community building, and we want to collaborate with people, if people are not giving you what you are giving them, if they're not putting in what you're putting into that project, leave it. I had to learn that the hard way. And I had to continue pushing and pulling. And this is not to say anything about these people. They're not bad people. They just weren't ready for what we were building. Matter of fact, any of the people that I just spoke about, none of them are bad people, okay? That goes for all of them. They just weren't ready for what I expected, or what I thought that they were ready for, based off of what they were saying they were ready for, right? So when you test and try and make sure someone is true, and they start to show you that they're not ready, listen to them, believe them. And I did not do that. I continued to push. I continued to strive to motivate. I continued to pick up the pieces and take on other people's shit, right? Take on their problems that they had created for themselves. And it just wasn't a great experience. It wasn't a great, it was a great lesson, but it wasn't a great experience for me at that time. And so where I am now, and why I say I'm starting over and I'm asking you all to come on this journey with me, is I am only exposing myself to things that bring me equity. I'm not doing anything else for free. And free doesn't mean that you have to give me like finances, monetary, but you have to give me some sort of value, right? No more free speaking engagements, no more charity. No more, no, you can't pick my brain. No, you can't get my insights. None of that shit. No. And you should feel the same way, because your intellectual property is an appreciating asset. Your ideas make people money. I've watched my ideas make people millions and millions of dollars. And do you think that they reach back to give me a penny? Not a damn thing, right? And so when I think about what it means to equitably expose myself to something, that means that I'm getting something of value. What I'm giving is being reciprocated. And if it is not, then there's no reason for me to do that. And so I live by this message that I give to you all, that I am divine. It is my time. That's not just something that I say that rhymes. I truly know, trust, and believe that, and I show and prove it every day. And that's what I'm here to do. So I'm the Khemist. Welcome aboard. Thank you so much for being here with me. And let's continue to go through this journey, and I'll show you everything that I'm uncovering, share more of my stories, share more of my insights. And all that I ask is you click that little button down there. If you like what I'm saying, share it with others, follow me for more, and I'll see you later. Peace.